So here's a piecewise function that has three different parameters or three different pieces to it. A piecewise function can actually have an unlimited number of parameters or pieces, but in this class the most you're ever going to see is three. So first let's evaluate this white line. So if we go to this white line, can you see that I'm going to evaluate at -1 first. I'm going to evaluate at whatever point is given. So if I plug in -1, I get -1 minus 2 equals -3 because I'm following that rule, right? I'm following the rule. If I pick -1, I'm following this rule. So that is the point, -1, -3, and that would be a filled in circle, right? Not an open circle because it has that equal to. If it's just a less than or greater than like these two, then it would be an open circle. So I'm going to go ahead and plot that point, -1, -3, with a filled in circle. So if you don't like using the slope, which I understand confuses a few people, then that's okay because all we have to do is we just, I need at least 2 points to graph a line. 3 is always better. So I'm just going to pick another random set of points that satisfy this condition. So I can pick -2, right? Because -2 is less than -1. So if I plug in -2, I'm going to get -2 minus 2, which is -4. So I have the point -2, -4. And I can plot that point. And I can pick yet another point. How about if I pick -3? That's also less than -1. So -3 minus 2 is -5. So I have the point -3, -5. And I can plot that point. And that certainly is enough to graph a line. So all I had to do was I started at this point that was given, -1. I evaluated that one first. I decided whether or not it was a filled-in circle or an open circle, and then I just picked another couple points that satisfied this condition as well. You can't pick the number +5, right? Because 5 is not less than -1. You can't pick the number 0 because 0 is not less than -1. So when you pick these points over here, make sure you're picking statements that are or points that are going to be true in that statement. Okay. So that's for the white line. Let's go ahead and delete this, and I can show you what to do with the blue line. All right, let me put my line back up there. So we had 8 points that look like this, and that was my function. Okay, so if we go to the blue line now, all I want to do, the blue line is actually, I think, the easiest of all, because all I want to do is I have two endpoints here between -1 and +2. My function is going to be 3. My y value is going to be 3. So that simply says that if I plug in -1, what do I get out? Well, I get a 3 out. So I'm going to have the point -1, 3. And if I plug +2 in, what do I get out? Well, I still get a 3 out. So I'm going to have the point 2, 3. Because I'm not changing it all. No matter what I plug in here, I'm just getting, my y value is going to be 3. My y value is going to stay constant. So I can plot those points, -1, 3. Oh, and then, so do we do a filled-in circle or an open circle? So -1, 3 is going to be an open circle, and 2, 3 is going to be a filled-in circle. Because -1 is less than, so it doesn't include it. It gets very close to, but doesn't include it. And 2 does include it. It is equal to. So now I'm just going to put those on my graph. So I have -1, 3, and I have 2, 3, and I can just connect those two. So the blue line is finished. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete that. I'll put this back on the graph in a second. Okay, so let me put that blue line back on. Sorry, technology is not the greatest for me, as you know. So there's my blue line. Okay, so let's put the pink line on now. So if we go to the pink line, so what I'm going to do is first, like I started before, I'm going to evaluate at this value at 2. So if I plug in 2, I get -1/2 times 2 plus 1. So -1/2 times 2 is going to give me -1 plus 1 is going to give me out 0. So I have the point 2, 0. And that is going to be an open circle, right? So now what I want to do is I just want to pick another couple points that satisfy this condition. I only need really 2 points to graph a line. So I want to satisfy this condition. So I could pick 3 or 4 or 5. I am going to help myself a little bit here because if I pick 3, can you see I'm going to have to do half of 3, which is going to, going to be negative 1.5, and I'm going to get into decimals. So if you want, you can pick whatever numbers you want as long as they satisfy this condition. So I'm going to pick positive 4. So if I pick 4, and you'll see why here, I picked that number in a second, negative 1/2 times 4 plus 1. Well, it's easier to calculate, half of 4, negative 1/2 of 4 is going to give me negative 2. So I get negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. So I have the point 4 comma negative 1. It's just a little easier than dealing with fractions, but you certainly can plot and pick fractions if you want. So I'm going to start my graph at 2 comma 0 with an open circle. So 2 comma 0, was right here. And then I'm going to pick the point 4, negative 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1 is right here. And that is plenty to graph my graph. If you wanted to pick a third point just to be safe, to make sure you're not off, then that's fine. I personally would pick an even number, so I might pick 6. And that is it. That is how you plot those. I'm going to do another couple videos because this is probably one of the more difficult topics for this chapter. So if you understand what I just did and can practice it, fine, then you don't need to watch any more videos, but I'm going to post a couple more where I'm just solving a couple of these. I probably won't talk very much throughout them.